Hello, my name is Tashika Perry Harris, and I am the founder of Crowning Daughters for Success Enrichment Program, a program that creates confidence without compromise. Welcome back to Empowerment Time, the Me Project. Today, we're going to be discussing one of the nuggets that I mentioned in a previous Empowerment Time. I talked about how successful leaders have and embrace accountability and empathy. And I want to dive in a little bit more in regards to what empathy really means and how we can change our world one situation at a time when we have empathy. Research reveals that we are primed for empathy by strong relational attachments in the first 2 years of our life. It is something that can be nurtured. It is something that can be used for social transformation, and it is something that can start with you. There are some habits that we can actually put in place as leaders as well as individuals that fosters empathy. Have a set of friends, right? And you know them, you trust them, you hang out with them, you have fun with them. But you lose sight of individuals that you have not experienced. Not allowing yourself to get to know strangers or people outside of your family and friend circle will decrease the opportunity for empathy. Sometimes we are in such friend and family bubbles that it is very difficult to be in the know about what others are experiencing and how others are being affected by the systems of life. For an example, daily you eat lunch with a certain group of friends and you never step outside of that cafeteria table friend peer box. You're hanging out with the same peers, you're hanging out with the same friends. These individuals have their lunch or money for lunch every single day. They're never starving. They always have enough for themselves as well as others. When you come in contact with that individual that is eating lunch for dinner because they don't have food in their cabinets and they don't have what they need in their refrigerator, it is very easy to miss the one who needs your friendship the most, who needs help the most, because your mind becomes trained. If I have it and all of the people around me have it, then they should have it as well. As the persons act up, as they get in trouble, what we do when we don't step outside of our bubble to get to know other people, instead of having empathy, we judge versus help. We label versus try to understand. So getting to know others will help us understand the injustices, the needs, and the challenges many people face. Empathy does not condone poor behavior. Empathy does not mean, okay, he's killing and robbing and shooting up everything, I feel so bad for him. No, empathy does not mean that you're going to lack a consequence if you break the law. Empathy does not mean that I'm going to condone and enable you to do wrong to others. Empathy does not condone poor behavior. Empathy tries to understand why, and empathy tries to help others correct poor behavior. So as we label the kid that is always in trouble, as we label the girl that all of the boys are talking about because she's easy and she dresses inappropriate, as we label the guy who sits along every single day with all black on and has social boundaries built and will not allow anyone in, what happens is empathy takes the label off others, and empathy put the label on us or ourselves, so that we try our best to understand how that person is feeling. One of the things outside of getting outside of your friendship box that will assist you with empathy is trying another person's life. Let me read you something that actually happened. George Orwell is an inspiring model of this. And it says, walk a mile in another person's shoes before you criticize him, is the quote. And George Orwell inspired this model. After several years as a colonial police officer in British Burma in the 1920s, Orwell returned to Britain determined to discover what life was like for those living on the social margins. I wanted to submerge myself to get right down to the oppressed, he wrote. So he dressed up as a tramp with shabby shoes and coat and lived on the streets of East London with beggars and vagabonds. The result recorded in his book, Down and Out in Paris and London, was a radical change in his beliefs, priorities, and relationships. He not only realized that homeless people are not drunken, crime-filled people, Orwell developed new friendships, shifted his views on inequality, and gathered some superb material. It was the greatest travel experience of his life. He realized that empathy does not just make you good, it is good for you. So walking a mile in someone else's shoes will help you to see how hard most of the people you are judging life is. Walking a mile in someone's shoes will give you the wisdom and intellect how to assist those people instead of tearing them down. Walking a mile in someone else's shoes will even increase gratitude towards the things you have access to, and give you the drive to give access to the ones that do not have it. After getting to know people outside of your friendship and family circle, and after walking a mile in other people's shoes, the last thing I want you to consider is commonalities. You may not be able to walk a mile in someone else's shoes. There's no way you can become a black person in this society. You can hang out with some black people and you can kind of see how they're being treated, but there's no way, if you are white, that you can transition into someone that is black. But what you can do, you can find a common ground. And for those of you who are in school, you can actually find a common ground of someone you love being bullied. There is a connection when you have someone in your family, or when you have a close friend who has been bullied by people. The common ground is you don't want that to happen to your loved one. You was very hurt and angry and discouraged when it happened to your loved one. So the common ground that causes you to stand up for others and have empathy towards others is that you are a friend. You are a family member, and when it happened to your loved one, you know how it affected them, and you know how it affects you. If you are a sister to a brother, you can try to ponder on if a police officer yanked your brother out of the car and put his foot on his neck and he died in front of all of mankind, a horrible lynching type death. When you're able to say, if it was my brother, if it was my dad, if it was my cousin, you just made a connection. And when you make that connection of It could be someone that I know and I love that can drive you to push personal beliefs aside that you may have for someone or a culture, and it will cause you to bring about justice and change. This is what empathy is all about. Empathy is all about saying, empathy is all about saying, I'm an activist asked a group of Caucasians this question: would you switch your life to be a Black person and receive all of the things that society has dished out to them? And not one white person raised their hand. Not one white person in that particular audience wanted to switch lives with Black people, because we have gone through many injustices. We have had systems put in place that worked against us and not for us. Not one Caucasian raised their hand and said, I would like to be treated like society is treating Black people. I would like for my children to be treated like society is treating other people who are Black and their children. And so she ended with, if you do not want this type of treatment for yourself, and you do not want this type of treatment for your children, then what are you going to do to enforce empathy? What are you going to do to change? So right here, there are systems that are being set up that's helping a certain group of people, but destroying or assisting to destroy another group of people. And when you have empathy, no matter what color, no matter what background, no matter what the economic status is, when you are a moral human being who has love within your heart, then it doesn't matter who it's happening to. When you're able to put yourself in their shoes and know that you would not want it to happen to you, then that is when empathy is manifested. It is almost like having a classroom with white and Blacks, and the teacher gives all of the white students sharpened pencils to take a test that is going to either pass or fail them in that particular grade. And then giving the Black children an unsharpened pencil and expecting them to succeed on that same test. Number one, they are not going to be able to write. And even if they bit through the wood to get the lead out of the pencil, they're going to start their test late. So they will always be at a disadvantage when they're not given the same sharpened pencil and the same information to apply to every test. Let's not leave out empathy. Let's not leave out the opportunity we all have to put ourselves in other people's shoes. So when you are a leader and you lack empathy, there will always be a bias. So as young leaders growing up, I want to urge you and I want to challenge you to have the same respect for the janitor as you would the CEO, because we all have to walk this life journey and it all gets difficult for us all. But if we all wore the coat of empathy, it would be a whole lot easier. This has been Empowerment Time.